Hi there, warriors. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the newest edition of La Celeste Talk. Today I'm joined, by three. Normally it's Alessandro and me, sometimes Daniel, and now we've got a new guest as well, a new warrior. I would like to say. Uh, Gabe, thank you, man. How are you?
How's it going, guys? How are you?
Oh, good. Yes. So no. Today I think what we're gonna do is obviously these pre-tournament feelings. They're like uncontainable, even though it's 2 weeks to go. So we try to channel them by having a discussion with each other and with you guys in the chat. So thank you for the people in the chat. Please let us know your feelings or your thoughts and bring up a topic of discussion for us to chat about. And first, before we are going to talk about Uruguay and everything involved with the La Celeste, you can join a special group chat of Uruguay fans over at Bunches, which is a sports fans app. Put the description down below if you want to join, talk about Uruguay, and also hopefully get in touch with fellow Uruguayans or fellow Uruguay fans who are actually in the United States this summer to catch games. It's probably a good place to be. So yeah, okay. I think I'll start with you, Gabe. What were your feelings when you saw the squad? Were you surprised massively, or?
I honestly, to be honest, I wasn't too surprised. The only surprise, just like everybody else, was probably Luciano, right? But like I feel like he really should have been there. He could have added even. I know he's not going to come and play a big part in the team like already, right? But at least come off the bench. You need a goal. You need something, right? You need some creativity. You're going deep into a game, right? So
Yeah,
he was probably the biggest. But other than that, to be honest, and you know what, I would have liked to see Lucas get called up, Torreira, but I mean, like I feel like he had a half decent season in Turkey. He had enough to at least be in the preliminary squad, but I don't know. I'm not sure what Bielsa didn't see there, to be honest.
yeah. I think for you, Alessandro or Daniel, I think that was my biggest surprise as well, Luciano. Because with Torreira, we probably expected it, but with Luciano, it was okay. I thought he had so much going for him. Why he probably would have been a good fit. Daniel, what was your take on that exclusion?
Honestly, I'm not surprised at all. I didn't think he had the greatest season. The greatest 5 months at Liverpool to start off the season. The team looked as good as they looked last year. So I think a lot of the transfer talk this last 5 months has gotten to his head, and now thankfully everybody knows he's off to Girona, and maybe he can put that behind him and get to his better soccer down the way. But I wasn't surprised that he was excluded at all. I was a little more surprised at the exclusion of maybe Facundo Torres. I didn't understand why he would call him maybe just to go play one friendly, the same as Cesar Araujo. Also a little bit surprised at why he would call him Miguel Merentiel just for 2 practices and then send him back home. That is what I'm most surprised at with Bielsa. But I mean, we've talked about this couple times before. You can never be surprised with anything Bielsa does, right?
No, that's a good point. Yeah, no, the point you made about Luciano with his season, it's also, as Luciano Rodriguez revealed himself to the press, is the point that Bielsa made. That this season wasn't that great, and it's true. By the way, I mean he had some good moments. I think a free kick in the Copa Libertadores, for example, which obviously they grabbed the headlines, and I probably do my best to really push that forward as well. But it's probably more understandable than what I first had the impression of. But Merentiel is another good point because now we have two strikers, Suarez, Darwin. Um, that's when you have 26 men. I think when we called up 23 in 2019 or 2018 World Cup, we had four. And okay, we play with two strikers, but still two strikers in the 26-man squad. I mean, Alessandro, what's your take on that?
I wasn't really necessarily surprised because I think we know how much Bielsa loves his wingers. He's so heavy, so much of a heavy emphasis in his tactical setup is playing through especially how wide the wingers actually play. They're essentially literally touching the touchline when you see the transition on the counterattacks. So it didn't necessarily surprise me. At first, when I saw it, it was surprising a little bit to see. But then I thought about it and I said, okay, realistically, he was only going to take 2 strikers, including Darwin, and then you're left to choose between Suarez and Luciano. Obviously, I think at that point, you're going to go with Suarez based on experience, based on the other benefits that we've mentioned time and time again on the stream before. More importantly, the mentoring aspect that he brings to the team. I've already seen countless videos put out on social media of him talking, especially the one with him talking with Darwin on the bench. I think after practice or before practice, I said, you know what, if he doesn't even play a single minute in this tournament, having him right there alongside Darwin in every single critical moment, especially Darwin, who's young, and we know that sometimes he struggles when there's pressure off the field, as we saw a little bit in Liverpool, having that calming influence and voice there is going to go and going to probably work wonders for us.
Yeah, good point. And Rodrigo Silva here, evening, guys. I would have really liked for Luciano to go, but I trust in Bielsa's project all the way. And I think that's the overriding feeling with, I mean, maybe speaking for myself, but knowing a little bit about all of you through interactions, obviously on X, for example. I think that's the overriding feeling with everyone here. And another point that Nico Mosquera makes here is that although they are not winger or they're not strikers based on their career, Oliveira, for example, has been used as a number 9, and Brian Rodriguez, I think he even tried him out as like a false 9 against the Basque country. So yeah, I mean, Bielsa's want to experiment and to surprise, obviously, with his lineups. So let's see. Yeah, and probably another. Good question, I guess, to ask, although I'm asking the question, so I probably shouldn't just my own questions. But with Suarez, what do you think the role of Suarez is going to be this Copa? Because I was thinking today and I was like, yeah, it's good that he's there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he actually makes very little minutes in the tournament. Gabe, how are you seeing this?
Listen, I love him. I love him to death, man, just like all of us. And I'd love to see him on the field if in the instance that, let's say, the third game doesn't matter, but even in that case, let's say the first 2 games we're able to somehow secure first, right? You want to keep the game rhythm, right? Like you're not just gonna throw Darwin out, say, hey, take a rest, right? But like I don't see him playing many minutes, like if any, unless we need, like, let's say we need a goal in the dying minutes, 10 minutes left. Like you trust somebody that you're going to put balls into the box, and you if there's anybody you trust that's going to get on it, it's going to be him, right? But other than that, to be honest, I don't see him playing any minutes.
Yeah, anyone want to come in on that? Maybe have a different opinion, or because I actually agree, by the way, because I think Suarez super sub, but that's it basically. Which I don't know if I agree with it, but I think it's going to be the case. Daniel,
I don't think he's there to be a super sub. I don't think Bielsa would have called him to be a super sub. Now, I don't think he's going to play. He's not going to start the final unless Darwin is injured, or he's not going to play those types of minutes that we're used to seeing him play. And over the last 12 years that he's been with the national team, 12 years plus. But I do think you'll see him be the prime sub, for Darwin. I think, and you could see from the Mexico game when Darwin came off, and I know Uruguay was up 4-0 at that point and all that, but when Darwin came off, they put Brian Rodriguez as a 9, and absolutely nothing happened. And why is that? And that's because Bielsa likes to play with a big 9 who, presses up top. And I know Suarez is not going to press like how he used to press, but I see him week in and week out with Inter Miami. I have him, less than 30 miles away from my house. And I see him practicing and see him playing. So that's what he's doing this year for Inter Miami, is holding up the ball and then playing to his wingers, which is exactly what Bielsa, tries to play. So I think you might see a little more of Luis Suarez than maybe you might think.
I agree with that. I actually think it's going to be, his role will be more of a reliever than an actual super sub. The final 10, 20 minutes, especially in the first 2 games against Panama, we'll leave it with all respect to those opponents, right? We should be up a few goals by the end of the game there. Suarez will come in, and it's important also to manage minutes for Darwin, especially how, physically intensive Bielsa likes to play. If he can come in, the fresher, the better as we get into the quarterfinals, the semifinals, because I bet you, the way we like to suffer traditionally, we're definitely going to extra time en route to whatever holds for us. It's inevitable. But yeah, no, I see Suarez's role more of a reliever. I think he's not going to play, 2-3 minutes. He'll expect especially in the first 2 games, to get at least 10 to 15.
Yeah, you're probably right. I hope to see it, by the way. I mean, because he's still, especially against Bolivia. I mean, the effort he had against Bolivia at the Centenario on the crossbar, he obviously needs to get one against Bolivia for sure. Okay,
I've never gotten to see him play live in my life. I've seen Uruguay play for Uruguay. I've only seen him play for Inter Miami live.
Yeah.
So I have tickets to the Miami game and I have tickets to the game in New York. So he's got to come. He's got to come on for at least 10 minutes. Like he's got to make my dream come true.
For you.
Yeah.
I'm taking a sign to both games, man. Dude. I've tried to see him play like 6 times. Every time I've seen Uruguay play, either he's hurt, Bielsa didn't call him, or he was suspended like after the bite. That's when those are the games I went to go see, and he never played. So
You were
I,
at the
privilege. I was lucky. I saw him in the 2016 October 2016 qualifier at home versus Venezuela. We won 4-0, 3-0. I can't remember the exact score. He didn't score that game. I was disappointed, but I was just remembered being absolutely in awe of what he did in that game, the way he took people out, the movement, the pass to Cavani to come in. It was just something else watching him play, because then you can see all the stuff that you don't see on TV when he's looking at the center back, when he's poking fun at someone. It's great. It's awesome.
He still does it, man. I'm telling you, I watch, and Gabe, I don't know if you watch the MLS much, but I mean, I watch here since he's down here, dude. He still does that same type of stuff that he would do in Barca, or he would do in Atletico, or in Liverpool, where he tugs on the guy's shorts, or he argues with the referee about the dumbest shit, or he still falls down when he's not even touched. I mean, it's just that those little quirky things that he's done throughout his career that makes him special and makes us Uruguayans and people who are fans of Uruguay love him.
It's classic Lucho, really. Like it's It's just I really hope we get to see him come in, like especially me, man. Like I'm dying to see him come in, and I'll be at the Jersey game and the KC game. So I hope somehow to see him come in, but we'll see what happens, I guess.
And who knows? He has a big moment up his sleeve, I mean, certainly if we hope to obviously progress to the knockout stages, and these games against Colombia and Brazil, I mean, they will not be easy. Obviously not. So in these tight games, I mean, I still believe that even though Darwin is obviously the number 9 for Uruguay, there's not the better natural finisher than Suarez in the squad, and also not someone who's more proven in these big moments, in big games, in Clásicos, in Champions League ties, in World Cup ties. So yeah, I mean, that's obviously something that even though Merrantil is younger, fitter, more physically capable, he never can bring that, obviously. So that's why I think he's there, or I'm sure he's there.
You're right. I mentioned this before, but say what you want to say about Suarez being old, not being able to fit the tactical function that Bielsa wants him. All that goes out the window in the last 5-10 minutes when you're a goal down in a knockout stage tournament game. And then that's when the quality and class is going to come through. So,
listen, man, you need one moment. And who are we going to trust with one moment? There's only one guy we trust that much with one moment. So I hope we see him. I hope we get to see him come on. And can you imagine? Let's say in a knockout game, this guy comes in and gets that moment. Man, that would be the whole other to it. I hope so. Man. I hope so. Although I don't want to be a goal down. So
that's true. Okay, let's. So this comment, I think it's a good comment to have. You haven't probably prepared for it, but I think we can obviously give it our best shot. So let's focus on the first game now. Against Panama. Alessandro, what's your 11 right now?
11. Muslera, Pereira, Lugano, Godin, Palito Pereira. No, I'm kidding. I know. Sorry, wrong year. I saw the tweet you put out the other day, the 2016 lineup. The last time we played in the States. I was laughing at that lineup. But no, I think there shouldn't be any surprises with the lineup. Expect something similar to what we saw in the qualifiers. Darwin up top, Gino and net. I think the question becomes, where's Araujo going to play? Is he going to play right back? Is he going to play center back? I think he'll start center back. Him and Jimenez, very strong center back pairing. Then you'll have Nandez right back, and then you'll have on the left. I actually really liked Olasa, what I saw against Mexico. Very solid. I didn't see much of him going forward, but very solid defensively. I was impressed anyways. But I expect that starting spot probably to go to Viña or Oliveira. That could be a toss-up or a coin toss there. The midfield, of course, we'll see Champions League winner Valverde. You'll see Bentancur, Ugarte. And then it becomes, now that I think of it and I start naming the names, it becomes tricky, because then you say, does De La Cruz start? Or then, because if he doesn't, then you have the two wingers. Darwin up top. I'm going to put him on the bench for now. Leave those three in midfield. Darwin up top, and then on the right you'll have Pilistri, and then on the left you'll have the other Araujo. And I think that's strong. That should be more than enough to get by the first game.
Anything you would change, Daniel? Or sorry, Gabe, anything you would change?
I think the biggest question, if anything, is going to be that defense. Whether he's going to want to play like he has in the qualifiers, Matias Oliveira at left center back, and he's going to play the Viña or the Olasa at left back and move Ronald to right back. I'm not sure. I don't know, but because he wants to play that guy on the strong foot. So I think that's the biggest, if anything, that'll be the bigger question.
I completely agree, and one of the questions that has been floating around in some of the chats that I'm in is, is Araujo going to play right back, especially if Uruguay runs into Brazil because he owns Vini. So we'll see if that's the case or not. But look, I loved how Nandes played against Mexico. I loved how he's looked in the qualifiers, and Gabe kind of said it right there. It all depends on what Bielsa really is looking for in that left center back position, because you can pair Ronald and Jimenez, but neither of them is strong on the left foot. And he's had to play, Cáceres and Oliveira, in certain positions out of necessity because Ronald has been hurt or Sema has been hurt or, whatever has been the case. So it's really awesome to be talking about all these awesome players that you could possibly fit into like so many different positions. I can't remember how many years it's been since we've been able to like name so many players that are great and you can just fit into a position. It hasn't ever been like that. I wish it was like that for right back, because Guillermo Varela doesn't give me the confidence that we have at left back, but left back is so deep.
Yeah. And just a question, I think defense, like I think we're all saying now, is a bit more of a puzzle and also more options. And also, although there are also options in midfield, like for example, Salazar, who's not there, Torreira as well. The options we have right now, I think, is really between four. It's Ugarte, Valverde, and then who's playing, Bentancur, De La Cruz. And I think that also depends on the opponent. And perhaps I'm even wrong, and Ugarte could drop out and Bentancur could fill in the six. But if for example, well, let's not take Panama as example, but let's take an example of Colombia or Brazil, actually the big game. What is your midfield? What is your three-man midfield, Daniel?
I can't tell you that because I have to see how the tournament is kind of flowing. But if we were playing Brazil tomorrow, my starting three would be Ugarte, Bentancur, and Valverde, just because based off of the type of games that they've played in the past, I think they offer us the best shot to win. But it's not going to say that you could play a double five with Fede and Bentancur and put in De La Cruz or De Arrascaeta as a 10 right in front of them. So, I mean, a lot of awesome options to talk about. You can even play 4-2-2-2. I don't know, man. I would love to be Marcelo Bielsa. I would love to be him.
I think that's one of the reasons why he took this job, is because for the first time, I would say in maybe 15, 20 years, the national team feels like a sandbox for any coach who's coming in. You got loads of talent, even younger talent with the under-20 team that just won the World Cup. And you have options. Like we could sit here, you could almost make 2 11s.
Yeah. And they have been there before, obviously, the options. But now what I think Bielsa is really smart in doing is that when you look at the Bentancur, Valverde, De La Cruz, they're all getting in their prime, 25, 26, that Ugarte a little bit younger, obviously. So, yeah, he could be here, obviously. And, yeah, obviously things have to go well. You never know what happens in football. But he can be here for quite a few years and actually have successes in national team football. Because with Chile, he did really well. I mean, absolutely. He probably laid the groundwork for what happened afterwards. But, for example, in Argentina, I actually dug up some old statistics for him, especially in the World Cup, was obviously disappointment. And even in the Copa, he didn't get his Copa with really a good squad. So hopefully with Uruguay, he can get that big trophy in the cabinet.
You know why, right? So that's the big kind of X on El Loco Bielsa, is that he runs his players down to the ground during the qualifying, that once they get to the World Cup, they're basically out of gas, and that's essentially what the Argentinians would tell you that Bielsa did to their team. Because if you remember that qualifying that he was in charge of Argentina, I mean, I think they got first. That was one of the first times that they had got first over Brazil in a lot of years. And of course, I think we were calculating, with our calculators, if we were going to maybe make 5th place or not. I don't know, man. Thank God we don't have to do that anymore. At least it feels like we don't got to do that. But yeah, man. Look, one thing I wanted to mention, because Alessandro, you said it feels like we could almost throw any 11 together. Uruguay did that. Uruguay did that last week. Uruguay threw a random 11 together, even a guy that plays amateur soccer in the middle of Uruguay, and they tied against basically the squad that Costa Rica is currently playing in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying and is going to take to Copa America. So just think about that. Uruguay picked 11 random dudes.
And that was Uruguay. That was Uruguay E, man. That was not even Uruguay B or C. That was like Uruguay E. So
and F with Walter Dominguez, the man of the pueblo.
Jugador del pueblo. There he is, man.
Okay, let's get.
We got so much to look forward to. So much. Honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, let's get into some comments because I obviously want to get the intention to the comments as well. So Kobe Simbler says, without a doubt, our most problematic position is the striker. Apart from Nunez, we don't have a world-class player there. Alessandra, we have spoken about this quite a few times, is that there have been many players that at one moment of time in their career, maybe a year ago, maybe 3 years ago, looked like future, not world-class perhaps, but good, top, proper strikers who could add value to the Uruguay team, like Satriano, like Canario Alvarez, like Arezzo. I mean, we can go on. But it's true that they haven't lived up to the expectation. And behind Darwin, we still have Suarez, a 37-year-old Suarez, who is the second choice right now. But is it the most problematic? Maybe any of you have a different take. But do you get I get what he's saying, by the way. But yeah, it's a tough one, I guess, because with Darwin, obviously, we have a striker he's been doing extremely well for Uruguay in the last 12 months. So it's not much of a problematic situation because there's someone who's doing so well. So it's perhaps you're right, but it's less pronounced right now in discussions we are having. I think right back is something that Daniel, you mentioned. Varela, he's not a starter for Flamengo. He keeps squeezing himself into squads for tournaments, but he's not convincing at all. So perhaps, in my opinion, that's more problematic. But it's a good observation for sure. Matthias de Napoli says, I believe he took 2 strikers because there's injury. You can call a replacement up. Better taking more well-rounded players and calling another striker if there happens to be an unfortunate injury. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can, but you can only call somebody up and replace them up until I think next Friday. Or next Wednesday, like to the day before the tournament. So if they get injured in the tournament, you can't replace them. So unless it's a goalie, unless it's one of the goalies.
Either way,
you need to fulfill the FIFA requirement of 3.
Correct. Yeah. The other thing, remember, Federico Viñas tore his Achilles about a month ago, and he was probably the one that was going to be the backup 9. And Suarez probably is going because Federico Viñas got injured. The other thing I wanted to mention regarding the last comment and in terms of why 9 is not the biggest issue, I would kind of compare Bielsa to like a Greg Popovich if you watch basketball. He runs a very interesting system and a very interesting like tactical system where you don't need a world-class 9 to be your 9. You just need somebody who's going to be able to put the ball in the back of the net, because if you noticed, almost every single goal last week against Mexico came from the side, across, and somebody was either waiting at the penalty box to knock it in or a center. So you don't need a world-class 9. You just need somebody who can put it in.
Two things I will add to that, and in agreement. The first is I'll use a mainstream example so that everybody understands. An example to that point is look what happened at Leeds with Patrick Bamford, who is a striker that nobody knew. He was a championship level striker. Bielsa comes in, runs what he did at Leeds. I don't have to say it; it's evident. And Bamford ends up being one of the top scorers of the league at the end of the year. And he was a system. His strikers tend to be system players. In this case, we both have Darwin who can fit that system, but also is world class in his own right. The second point I was going to make is that when you're looking at the tournament and maybe international football as a whole, world-class strikers in a lot of the top 15, 20 countries in the world, it's hard to come by. I mean, let's even take out Argentina and Brazil from the equation. There's nobody else in the tournament who has a striker at the level of Darwin Nunez. Germany doesn't have an excellent number 9. Spain doesn't have, a world-class 9 at the level of Darwin, I would argue, right? So sometimes we get a little bit, we conflate sometimes when we draw comparisons between teams as if we're doing it with clubs, when we're doing it with national teams, it has to be done a little bit differently. But that's all I'll say.
I think
That's a good point.
The other thing to add on to that is the fact that a lot of us, or not even us, but I guess outsiders maybe are looking on the fact that we had Eddie and Lucho for these years. Like they're almost expecting us to just pull one right out of here. Like another stellar star. So it's not that easy, I don't think. But
we've been spoiled. That's a great point. We've been spoiled, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And funnily enough, I think the argument you made with Bamford was brilliant, spot on. And because of that, and because of Bielsa now taking over Uruguay national team recently in the last 12 months, obviously, Darwin, I would not be surprised if Darwin racks up incredible numbers over the upcoming years. And especially starting with this tournament, by the way, because with all due respect, when you play Panama and Bolivia, you can actually arrive in the knockout stages, if you make it, obviously, with 4 or 5 goals. That is not something we have seen from Suarez or Cavani in their entire career when it comes to tournaments. And obviously, these two are better strikers, better players. But it's all about who is in charge, what kind of football do you have, and obviously, what are your teammates capable of. So, yeah, I think the point you made about Bielsa and the way his strikers obviously need to have quality, but especially they need to be in the right areas. They need to keep making these runs, and then obviously eventually they will get goals. And Matthias adds here, Suarez will be a false 9, providing service to Darwin with his very precise passing late in games more than anything. Yeah, I agree with the latter part. I think, I think there was a little bit of a period under Alonso where Suarez obviously was more of the false 9 or 9.5, 9.5, and Darwin being more advanced. But that period, I think we will not see that. Maybe in-game in certain scenarios, but who knows? And Nico Mosquera, I think, makes a point there, which I think we all see, and we all. What is one of the reasons why I wanted him to be here is that he says, I also think Suarez is great for the other guys as a mentor. This is a young team, and many players idolize him. Because before I get and some of you in, did you watch the video of him arriving at the camp? Franco Israel, all on him. Almost emotional. Yeah, I think that's a big factor for Suarez being in the squad as well, right?
I mean, I saw the video personally, and I saw the squad morale just go up in real time. It was emotional for some of these players to hug and talk to Suarez. But we have to give credit to Suarez as well, because he's willing to put his ego aside, right? Not many players of this level are able to come into a national team and say, hey, I'll be the guy on the bench. I'll take a step back. It's your time. It's your time now. You're not going to see Cristiano Ronaldo do that as easily for Portugal. That I can tell you. But yeah, no, it's honestly wonderful to see Suarez like this.
Yeah, I think the most important part, and it's the piece that a lot of people don't mention, but he took Luciano Rodriguez's spot essentially, because Luciano was sent home over the weekend. And he was the first one to text Luciano and tell him, like, hey, I see what you're doing. Keep your head up. This isn't a bad thing or whatever. So I think that's the piece that folks, fail to mention, that not only is he there for the guys that are going to be there, the 25 other guys that are joining him, but he's also there for the guys that are not on the team, maintaining relationships with them on and off the field. So I think that's fantastic of Suarez.
Yeah, and I think the chat or the message to Luciano, I think he's great at that. When you hear stories from, for example, Maxi Gomez when he came to Celta and how he immediately tried to let him help him adapt. But also, I've never seen a high-profile footballer like Suarez be so in everybody's posts. Whether it's, for example, Walter Dominguez, the semi-professional player, or whether it's Ocampo, who's having an injury and is getting back with Cadiz. He's everywhere. I mean, and I think it really is him. I don't believe it's a social media team. I really don't believe it. Perhaps some of them say this, you could do this or not, but I think it's really him. It's not, or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm being a bit naive or more romantic, but so that's great to see, I think, with him always. Yeah. Let's have a look. So Kobe Simler says, I prefer Cavani to Suarez. He's in much better shape. I think we could have an argument about that, but I think it's a bit, yeah, it's done. And Cavani is probably physically more capable, but I think we will have to wait maybe a few more months to get the full story of what actually unfolded. There are some stories on either side of the conversation, so it's hard to get into that, I guess. Maybe some of you have other information than me, but okay. Matias de Napoli, just don't play Lucho against Argentina. His friendship with Messi gets in the way. Okay. Yeah. And Kobe Simler, 2 questions.
I've never seen any proof of that. I've just
No. I remember the game. I remember the game against in Israel against the 2-2. That's, I mean, obviously they've played more games against each other, but that was quite friendly. But they were both incredible as well in that game, so I don't get an argument either. And he's obviously not going to start against Argentina when eventually, hopefully, we will get into the finals. So yeah,
Suarez doesn't care, man.
No.
When we played against England in the Brazil World Cup, he's throwing elbows on Gerrard and all his Liverpool teammates. Like,
I'm willing to bet he'd bite Messi to win a Copa America.
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah.
But there's one thing I think people didn't like. For me, I wasn't that much of a problem. But when I think on social media, he was when Argentina won the World Cup, he was like congratulating Messi and all that stuff. So maybe some people have this feeling that they don't like that. But yeah,
who didn't? You have players from Brazil, legends from.
Yeah, no, true. No. I just trying to bring up the argument that people have, and to some extent I understand it, but yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, these are not only best friends in football, but they're best friends in life, basically. You know. So yeah, that's.
I think when you say that, I think when we look from the outside in, especially like those of us who aren't natives to the country, and we aren't, living there and by the border there. Like I think the rivalry is it's to an extent, but I think we sometimes, some of us that aren't there, think of it as so much more than it is. Like it is. Don't get me wrong. It's one of the top rivalries in all of international football for sure. But I mean, to put that aside, when was the last time one of these South American teams won a World Cup? Before this, what was it? 2002.
2002.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah.
22 years. Not that. Don't get me wrong. Not that I was cheering. Oh yeah, go Argentina. Absolutely not. But I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. I guess. Yeah. Because no, it's a good point. Because I was reading the book from Martin da Cruz, From Beauty to Duty, and obviously he obviously talks a lot about these early rivalries. And I mean, my limited knowledge of Uruguayan history is that Uruguay have historically been more friendly with Argentina than, for example, with Brazil. So maybe I'm wrong there, but so I think Chile, for example, is one that gets people really riled up. Me, especially, by the way. Brazil is another one, but Argentina, it seems from the outside as well more friendly. But like you said, if you're not living there, you will never really get the full impression or full knowledge of what it actually is. So yeah, okay. But anyway, we will see if that clash comes and what will happen with Messi Suarez. I think, like you said, they will not see eye to eye with each other in that game then. So, okay, 2 questions. Who's the right back, I guess you were saying, and which midfielder goes to the bench, Ugarte, De La Cruz, or Bentancur? Yeah, I mean, who is your right back? Is Tarajo, is Nandes? What's Gabe? What you're saying?
I'd love to see. For me, Nandes, he's like the prime example on this team of Garacharua. It's the truth. At the end of the day, you see the video of him diving with his head to go and get the ball against Mexico. He did it before in multiple other games. Like that guy plays with, and I know it's not just down to heart at the end of the day, but he's working for us. I think he works for us. It all comes down to that left center back. Like, is Bielsa comfortable with playing Ronald and Josema together? They have the quality, I think, even regardless without the strong-footed side. But it's all going to be down to that. But if you're asking me who I'm going to play right back, I'd probably play Nandes. I'd probably end up playing Nandes.
I agree 100%. I go with Nandes at right back. And in the midfield, I think we talked about it. I start Ugarte, Bentancur, and Valverde.
Yeah, no, it's Yeah, I think Hernández is the good, because obviously we all want Araujo in the center. I guess. I mean, Araujo would do a great job. I think certainly, perhaps it will happen against Vinicius, for example, or Luis Diaz. But yeah, luckily that it's not. It's more of a luxury problem, than like something that's going to be incredibly consequential. You know, when you, for example, have Gaston Silva at left back or another one. You know, then you see the differences and you see the drop in quality, and hopefully it's not going to be the case at right back. Jorge Cepero says, "What do you guys think? What do you guys expect from Valverde this tournament?" Yeah, Alessandro, you obviously you referred to him as the Champions League winner, which we all should do, obviously. What's your expectation? Because this is probably going to be the first tournament where the World Cup perhaps as well, but where he really is being looked at as the leader to take Uruguay, hopefully, to a title.
Well, I mean, I speak for all probably when I say that I think the expectations are sky high given what we saw with Real Madrid in the Champions League, especially in the knockout games. Every single big game Real Madrid had when their backs were against the wall, Valverde was just like unplayable in terms of his work rate, his ethic. But it's also, I've heard the comments before, or I've seen comments online where people sort of question, why doesn't he do what he does in Real Madrid for the national team? And then you have to understand that his role in Real Madrid is very unique and very conditional to what Ancelotti wants him to do. He essentially plays on that right wing, and then he comes in and drifts into the middle of the midfield as the game progresses. So the question is, I know we had talked about it a long time ago when Bielsa had first started coaching Uruguay, is whether Valverde would be used in a similar way that he's used in Real Madrid. I don't think that's going to be the case now. It's more likely than not that he'll probably be a central midfielder, just because we haven't really seen that happen. And why would it change now before the Copa América? It would be kind of weird to do that. But I would expect, a strong tournament showing, especially now that he's got leadership, he's got confidence, and probably a long shot or two left in him. My only concern is is obviously a fitness concern and fatigue, right? A long year for him. So hopefully, his energy levels are managed properly so we can get the best out of him.
Yeah.
I'm curious if he's going to be the captain, man.
Yeah.
He was the captain. He was the captain before Josema came back just now. Josema was the captain last week. Is Valverde going to be? Is he going to wear the band?
Yeah, I think he will, because when they both played against Argentina and when Josema even came on, he took the armband as well. But we never know, obviously. And perhaps it's even Suarez, and obviously he will probably not wear the captain's armband as much then. But I wouldn't be surprised if Suarez is actually the team captain and Josema second and Valverde third.
Well, Suarez will be the captain without the armband because he's not on the court anyways.
Yeah.
But the question, I'll pose this question to everybody: who do we want as captain?
For me, actually, and that's not one of the three options, Araujo. I think he's the captain for me, really. But okay, that's.
I honestly prefer the armband on Josema. I don't know, or Jimenez. I feel like has more experience. There's just something when I see him with the armband, especially against Mexico, the walk, just reminds me. It's very similar to what we saw before with Godin and Lugano.
Well, I think that's why it's automatically people start to think that it's going to be a center back, because if you go throughout the history, it's always been a center back. The last one was Godin. Before Godin was Lugano. Before Lugano, it was Paulo Montero. So you're going back in the history, and it's usually been a center back. Very rarely, has a Uruguayan team been captained by something other than a defender. But I would love to see Valverde take the armband and become the leader that I think he's ready to become, and he's shown that he's mature enough to do that by who he's playing with in Madrid. Toni Kroos just gave him the number 8 in front of probably 2 million people in the middle of Madrid. So that to me is kind of like the passing of the torch, and I think this is a tournament where he just completely breaks out.
Yeah, that's also really. I think we can expect it, but always, I think with the World Cup when Valverde was in red hot form from Madrid, he unfortunately wasn't able to really grab the team and get them forward. But I think there were also things out of his control. For example, how Alonso played and how other people were in the side who shouldn't be there. But this tournament, the conditions are ideal for him to really break out, like you say. And then we're talking about someone who really hopefully gets even more recognition, because many people know what a great midfielder he is, But when it comes to, for example, Declan Rice is a great player, Declan Rice. Don't get me wrong, but the way people talk about him, and what more in a widespread way compared to Valverde, it annoys the hell out of me, because it's just, come on, this man is, for 4 or 5 years now, he's been able to keep out Casemiro or Kroos or Modric out of the side at the start, and now he's been able to be the solid member, really the, well, if he's not playing, you immediately see it at Madrid, winning 2 Champions Leagues already. And it's still, when you have conversations about midfielders in the world, then he's still a little bit, well, for me, overlooked. But yeah, hopefully
you had a bone to pick there.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I can tell. You saw something on Twitter earlier. No, not to say that you're wrong, but I agree. But
if you want to mention that England lost to Iceland, I mean, you can.
It's
okay, man. All right.
I have them going out to the quarterfinals, by the way, but that's another story. So no, but yeah. I think England is actually the opposite of what Uruguay normally is. It's so much hype, and Uruguay is obviously more as an underdog and low profile. Obviously, that's compared to Argentina and Uruguay, and Argentina and Brazil. And England's the all opposite, even though there are better teams, I guess. Maybe not, especially now, but for example, between 2000 and 2010, there was still so much hype, and they never delivered, obviously. So, yeah, probably England is everything I don't want to be as a supporter of a national team. So, yeah, if that makes sense. Okay. Nico Mosquera, what are your thoughts on Brian Ocampo? He barely played the season due to injury, but I think Bielsa is intrigued and wants to give him a shot. Yeah, any one of you want to get into this one? Yeah.
I think, listen, he's obviously not in rhythm, so that's a question I have. I don't see him playing much of a role in the squad once again. Like unless somebody's going to go down the injury, the undisputable starters, we know what they are. It's going to be Pelistri and Araujo on the left. So who's going to come in for them? I don't know, to be honest. Like, you got options. Do I trust Brian Rodriguez to come in a Copa game, in an important game? I don't know. What do you guys think? I just, Ocampo, he's not in match rhythm. He's barely, he's barely played. So
yeah, I mean, I think, and we talked about it a little earlier in the show. Bielsa loves his wingers, and I'm looking at who he brought. And I'm looking at a number of wingers, and you've got Canovio, who can play on the wing, Rodriguez, Ocampo, Pelistri, Araujo, Oliveira. So you're talking about 6 guys. And I think he does that on purpose. He does it so that, he can give himself a bunch of options and kind of say, all right, I'm going to choose this guy. I'm going to choose this guy because he's looked okay in practice. But if it doesn't go well, I can always bring this other guy. And the reason that I think he likes Ocampo, and it goes back to when he was playing great at Nacional, and then he had, a terrible kind of season. And then he was kind of breaking out again when he was playing for Cádiz. And I think what he gives you, which Canovio doesn't give you, neither does Brian Rodriguez, is he gives you a person who can kind of take somebody one-on-one off the dribble. Again, he's not in form, like you mentioned, Gabe. But if he's able at least to have that spurt of sprint, that he has, that kind of, sprint energy, I think he could give Uruguay a really good option, on that left wing, because he has a really good shot. I don't know if you guys remember him when he played in Nacional, but there was a lot of times where, he kind of would cut in and take a shot, and he scored a lot of goals, in Nacional, and had a lot of assists. So look, he might not be informed, but he's, it definitely gives him another option. And I personally rate him in front of Canovio, in front of Rodriguez. But again, I do agree that his, he has to be informed in order to play ahead of them.
Like on paper, he is, in terms of attributes, he is exactly what Bielsa would love in a winger. And you said it right there. The ability to take someone one-on-one, especially late on in a game, is going to be very, very valuable. I'm also willing to bet that 2 or 3 years ago, everybody spoke so highly of Ocampo. And I'm willing to bet that when Bielsa first came and he looked at the national pool of players, Ocampo was up there as one of the main wingers. You know what? I'm probably willing to bet that he probably would have preferred Ocampo instead of Maxi Araujo. Then he calls up Maxi Araujo because I think at the time Ocampo was injured. He comes in, performs very highly, and then sort of wins his place in the team. But Bielsa, I think, is licking his lips over this one. And you mentioned there, he definitely gives us a different type of winger. A lot of these wingers, too, now that we have a lot of depth on the wing, they also fit different tactical profiles, and they have different functions as well. Like, for example, Canobio is not going to be the guy who you want transitioning the play on speed, on technicality. Canobio is the guy you bring on the wing to slow it down, to create a double mark on the right back. Let's say you're playing against Brazil, Vinny Jr. is coming down, you put Canobio and Nandes there, and then if he gets by both of them, and you got to get by Araujo. Good luck to him there, but you know what I mean, right? So that's what I think anyways.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying, because I think Ocampo, the injuries is a shame, but in terms of the player profile he is and the talent he has, he's obviously someone who can add a lot of value to this team. And also different, because Canobio is more of a runner. Brian Rodriguez also is explosive, and Ocampo obviously has speed, but he's way more technical and way more like, I did a tweet a few months ago, I guess, that he's probably the closest thing we have to Neymar, and that's obviously not saying he's similar, but he is kind of like, he can do that. He can keep 2 or 3 defenders busy and trying to slow it down as well, and have a great technique to beat a player indeed. So and if we have this question, who are the most important sub options for Uruguay will have going into the Copa? I think Ocampo is one, because he offers something different, certainly in tight games with defenders having 17 minutes in their legs, and he can open up something. And like Darasqueta as well, by the way. These are 2, in my opinion, good sub options. Anyone you want to add to that? Any of your guys? I mean, we have Suarez, obviously, but
there's one guy that we haven't talked about the entire show, and that's a guy who I think was probably a surprise and a long shot to make the roster, and that was Emiliano Martinez, who came out of Nacional, played for Red Bull Bragantino in Brazil, and now he's playing in Europe. I think he just won the trophy in I don't know if it's the Danish league he's playing in, but with Midtjylland or whatever. So I mean, he's another player that fits the Bielsa profile: long, lanky, extremely quick, very versatile, can play all over the midfield. It'll be interesting to see if he gets minutes, for Ugarte. Remember, against Mexico, he was practicing in Uruguay, and Cesar Araujo was the one that kind of got in those last few minutes. So, and then he was kind of dropped from the squad. So I'm curious to see Emiliano Martinez play. Also, Nico de la Cruz having an awesome season at Flamengo. He had a scare a couple weeks ago with an injury. Glad he didn't get injured. But those are kind of the 2 guys that I'd be interested, in seeing come off the bench. And then I saw a comment of somebody saying that, Kiki Oliveira, wasn't playing that well in LAFC. And I beg to differ, man. I think again, he's another guy who has shown that he can beat players off the wing one-on-one. And I rate him ahead of Brian Rodriguez and Agustin Canobio. So that's another player that I'm really excited to see for Uruguay's Copa America.
But the counter argument on Canobio, and I understand what you're saying, is that he's actually, when you look at these 3 players, especially Brian, by the way, because Brian is not even at a starting role or has played an awful lot for Copa America. But of these 3 players, Canobio is actually has started off quite well in the Brazilian league. So that's why I actually wanted him to be there. But Oliveira, for me, the jury is still out on what he can do in this team. Certainly when you watch the games against, I think it was Colombia he played, or Ecuador, one of these games. It's true that it weren't many minutes, and Bolivia at home, I think he played as well. It wasn't convincing. But I think, and Daniel, I think you fully agree with this is that when Bielsa makes these decisions, he has proven to me especially that you have to trust him in these decisions, and they eventually, hopefully, will pay off. And more often than not, they have paid off so far. So let's hope that's going to be the case with Oliveira as well. Gabe, anyone you want to highlight who perhaps is outside of the 11, but who could still be?
I think you guys hit the spot, to be honest. The one guy, like I said, that you did mention is Nico. I want to see Nico. I want to see, especially in a game where we don't have to rely on being so defensive. Like I wouldn't mind seeing him against Panama or Bolivia. I wouldn't mind that. Like once we get into the knockout stages, like pray to God. But
we have to, man. We have to.
Anything less is a failure, obviously. But
yeah.
Once you get into those games, let's say you play the Colombia, you play the Brazil. I would trust. I'm going to trust those three, those three undisputed starters for me. Benta, obviously, Fede, and Ugarte. But in those two games, I'd like to see how Nico fares, more offensive. I'd like to see us play. We've been playing. I mean, you compare the way we're playing right now to the way we played in those for Alonso, especially. We're not. This team isn't afraid. This team's not playing on the back foot. This team's not playing like an underdog. This team's playing on the front foot. They're pressing like just his style. And they're not. I don't think they're afraid of anybody. So even if it does come to that Brazil, that Colombia, I wouldn't mind seeing Nico. I think that creativity might end up being necessary. So we'll see.
One thing I will add super quickly before we move on is that De La Cruz is the guy that he went with from the beginning. Bentancur was suffering from injuries, so he had to come off the bench. So De La Cruz, if anything, has had much more minutes under Bielsa's system, is much more attuned to whatever Bielsa's game plan is. The guy in danger of the three that you just mentioned, Gabe, of dropping out actually is Bentancur. I know that may be a shock on paper to everybody, but when you look at it from a bigger picture and what's been done so far in this sort of proceso under Bielsa, it would make kind of sense, right? De La Cruz has that sort of already been adapted to whatever Bielsa wants to do.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah, that's De La Cruz. Yeah, he's. That's why I think he deserves to start the first game, especially because it's very, very cruel to him, And obviously, it's football, but I think he's 3 goals, 2 assists in the qualifiers, 3 assists even, and the way he played as well, I mean, okay. Underdog says Luciano was the next best choice, and after that, give Menatio a chance. I have not been impressed with Oliveira. I still don't understand why they went with Oliveira. Yeah. No, I think many people have some qualms or some different ideas on the squad. Yeah, but I think, and you guys echo that, this team is more than good enough to get a deep run, and we are due a deep run. I mean, like we all know, group stages, quarterfinal, group stage, quarterfinal. Since the 2011 win, obviously. So yeah. Okay, Ajay says, of the starting 11, I'm only worried about the build-up play from the back. Rochette isn't very good with his legs. Yeah, I think we're not even, or I am not, thinking about it a lot, but it's a good point because that's probably one of his deficiencies. Do any of you see this being a problem during the tournament, or how do you see this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially when you get to the knockout games, you see in these short tournaments, teams start to play more defensive and start to play more instead of they play more reactive, based on what the other team does, and they hope you make a mistake and they pounce on you. And you see that from Bielsa. Bielsa, looks for you to make a mistake with the pressure, and then they pounce on you and they get 5 or 6 up really quickly. So, could that happen against us? Absolutely. Could that happen where Rochette gets the ball, misplays it, doesn't play it correctly, and then we get a counter against us? Absolutely. But Uruguay, I don't think has ever had, or it's been a long time since they've had a goalkeeper who's been very good with his feet. I don't think Muslera was that good with his feet either. And I think Rochette is a much better shot blocker than Muslera. I think the biggest difference with Muslera was he was just a great leader. I think that I don't know if Rochette yet has developed or is going to develop. So I think he's a great goalkeeper, but I do agree with the commenter saying that he's not good with his feet. But you're not going to put a goalie in there just for that aspect. I think he's good enough.
Yeah. No, intern, the way you were talking about that earlier, it sums up international football as a whole. It lends itself much more to, pragmatic setups and whatnot. And I will point out in the first half an hour of the friendly against Mexico came out strong off the gates and pressed the back line hard. And there were a few times in which the back line weren't positioned well enough to handle that pressure. So, I do worry if a team that comes out of the gates early on presses the back line, heavily and has quality like a Brazil, a Colombia in particular, scares me in this regard because Luis Diaz, and I know this as a Liverpool fan, is one hell of a presser. So, we got to be careful there. The one play that sticks out from my mind from that game against Mexico was when Nandes had the ball, he turned, he looked to play back, but Roche wasn't showing, and neither was Jimenez, which led to Jimenez and him getting into an argument, and then they kept talking about it afterwards. So hopefully, I'm sure the coaching staff picks up. If I notice that, they've got to notice that, right? I'm just some guy here, in a random house. But that is a legitimate area for concern, and I also will agree too with the goalkeeper comment that Roche is a much better handler and commander of his area when it comes to crosses on corners and an open play than Muslera. What I will give Muslera though is that when it comes to lower shots and especially on a 1v1, I'd give the edge to Muslera. But here, I'd give the edge overall for the rest. I'd give the edge to El Chino.
And one question about this as well. I think Franco Israel played a game and Santiago Comella played a game in the friendlies in March. And Israel obviously made a really rapid recovery. Many of us, all the reports basically from journalists were stating that he would not be there. And I think he himself even didn't think he would be there, but still he's there now. Rosette is still the lock. Do you think this could change with Israel? Because Israel is probably more of the profile that Bielsa wants in terms of ball-playing goalkeeper. But do you see any changes in this, or do we all think Rosette is going to be the number one?
I think we all think the same thing. I mean,
No,
eventually, for sure. Eventually, he has the talent. We've seen it. So, but right now, it's undisputed.
We're sticking with whatever worked best in qualifiers. It's going to be as close to what we've seen before. That's what I think.
I'm curious. Are you guys upset that Arrua Barrena hasn't been called at all? Because that's been a huge topic, especially amongst the fans on X. A lot of folks have been upset that Bielsa hasn't called him, and they say that he's been probably the most consistent Uruguayan keeper over the last couple of years. Over in, I think he's playing in the Spanish league, if I'm not mistaken, but or Portuguese league. My mistake. So, what are your guys' thoughts about that? I mean, he decided to bring Israel and Mele over him. Do you think he was snubbed and he deserved a spot over one of those two?
I don't know. I think that the obvious thing, the first thing that comes to mind is the penalty shot stopping ability. I think over the three, I think he's the best penalty kick save percentage of the three of them. I mean, we saw countless times through your page, David, that you were posting a penalty save by him again and again and again.
Propaganda, man. Propaganda.
Yeah. This guy's a penalty saving machine, and that is so valuable in a knockout game.
By the way, has he sent you a jersey yet for all the free marketing that you're doing for him?
No, not yet, unfortunately. No, but I think it's a good question, by the way. But for now, it's less of a problem. But when this argument for me actually was relevant is when he was doing exceptionally well, especially in the 2023 or 2022-2023 season. This season, though, he's not even played every game. He's not been as good. And another point is that, you just realize that he is not the player or the goalkeeper that Bielsa likes and that fits into his playing style, just like Torreira, So that's why I guess it's less, for me anyway, not a topic anymore. But with him, and similar to someone like Pacho Espino before, I think we can all look at what they can bring to a manager or to a team. But what I always try to bring it back to as well is these are players that dream their whole life to be in the national team. And when you are performing at a certain level as a goalkeeper or a left back like Espino, which at that moment in time, no one else actually is reaching, it's really hard on that person to not be caught up, And certainly Espino is another good example because now we have Oliveira. But for a moment, when Pereira was gone and was on the way down, we had the likes of Gaston Silva there, or later, Matias Vinha was coming up. And then I was thinking, come on, Espino has to have a more pronounced role, a more key role in this team. Without Obrena, the argument for me anyway was similar. But And I think this, by the way, the question you asked ties really well into this one is because Bielsa is someone who has his decisions, his peculiar, view on football, according to me anyway. And just so Nico Mosquera here asks, just want to know your thoughts when Bielsa started new players in the qualifiers, such as Maxi Araujo, Sebastian Cáceres, and Christian Oliveira. Were you skeptical at first? Yeah, I mean, Gabe, for example, Cáceres, I think that's the big one here, you know? Wow, what were your feelings when he was called up and when he played actually in these games?
I think Cáceres was a big one for sure, but for me, honestly, it was more Maxi Araujo because I mean at the time, like think about it, this is the start of Bielsa. I mean before that, we weren't really concerned too far with wingers wise, like you guys have seen how many guys he's called up now. So Maxi Araujo wasn't really necessarily a household name that personally I expected to at least have the spot that he has now. Like I wouldn't have, if you asked me back in let's say a year ago, June, July of last year, would I think Maxi would have been our set starting left winger? Probably not, to be honest. But here we are. I mean, that's what Bielsa's there for, right?
Yeah. No, that's and credit to him, you know. Yeah, that's the thing because Araujo and Cáceres especially, they have repaid his trust incredibly well, you know.
Well, you're finally a believer, Dave. You know, we started 6 games ago on this journey together. I think we had a couple shows, you, me, and Alessandro when Bielsa first started, I think, and we got 2 wins right away. And I kept telling you got to trust it, man. This guy knows what he's doing. And you know, we talked about it too. We had the same question about Cáceres. I remember talking. And a lot of the conversations that people had were, well, he's not playing in America, and when he does, he's not playing that well. And I'm like, I agree, but Bielsa has to see something. He's a genius for some reason. He's at where he's at for some reason. So again, I've never doubted. I've been a Bielsista since, you know, he's been hired, and I've been criticized because a lot of Uruguayans don't like that an Argentinian is coaching Uruguay, but look, man, I'm all for it. I've loved him ever since he coached Chile. I think he's a fantastic coach. So I will trust him no matter what, even with weird call-ups. Even, you know, him calling Matias Vecino every time on his call-ups, I trusted him. So
he's suffering.
I had to bring it up for you.
Yeah.
He's suffering maybe a little bit from PAD, post-Alonso disorder. So I understand that your hopes could have gone a little more, you know, you're a little bit jaded, but don't worry. You know, I was definitely not as high on it as you were, Danny, but I was, you know, somewhere in the middle. In terms of these players who were called up, Maxi Araujo was the one that surprised me the most because I really didn't know much about him before he played. But Seba Cáceres, I think people are a little bit too harsh because this is a player who's already been through the proceso, right? He already played an under-20 World Cup with Uruguay. I think he was also capped previously with Tavares or Alonso. So I knew that he was competent, but what was wrestling in my mind whether or not he would be, you know, a true starter for the national team. He played very well in the September-October qualifying windows, very well against Argentina, very well against Brazil, impressed me and earned his place. Oliveira, I'm willing to reserve judgment because you can't really judge half an hour in the altitude in Ecuador in a World Cup qualifier where you're down 1-0. So it's a bit difficult to sort of lay the hammer on where that Oliveira thing is right there. But so far, I guess he's been doing pretty well with who he's called.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I'm a Bielsista as well now, right? So yeah. Okay. Kobe Simmer says, not an easy question. Assuming we get past Brazil and Colombia and reach the final against Argentina, will it be possible to beat Messi in Miami? And then he adds, it's not so pleasant to ask, but do you believe that the tournament is not already sold to Messi like the World Cup? Yeah, I mean, obviously the ideal scenario for the tournament is to Messi to lift in Miami. But I really get a bit fed up with this argument that the tournament was fixed for Argentina, you know, the World Cup speaking about, because I didn't see it like that, to be honest. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that is also something I was thinking about actually in recent days, is that, I mean, for Uruguay will be the ideal scenario. I mean, what is more Uruguay like to like have this scenario where there's a huge favorite, everybody wants him to win, or not everyone, but anyway, the conventional storyline is that they win, and then Uruguay come up and to to ruin the party. I mean, it's ideal, right? But yeah.
I think the most attractive final, and you guys can chime in, but I think the most attractive final on paper right now would be Argentina-Uruguay. I think right now it surpasses Argentina-Brazil just because you don't have the star power of Neymar. Brazil, although, you can never, doubt them, they're not as strong, or they haven't presented as strong a lineup as they have in the past years. So I think right now, probably Uruguay-Argentina is the most attractive final. And I said it to my family the other day. I said, if Uruguay plays Argentina and it's in Miami, clearly I live here. I said, I'm leaving. I don't care if it's my soul or my whatever, my lungs. I'm leaving every piece of my body in that stadium. It doesn't matter, win or lose. Like, I'm not leaving that stadium.
No,
Better
yeah,
alive.
no, fair enough. Yeah.
I was doing budgeting the other day for, just doing budgeting, looking at how much money I have this summer. And I look over the Copa América poster that I had, and I said, "Oh my God, should I put some money aside to go? I'm going to Miami for the first game, but should I put some money aside if there's a final? Like, how much would I be willing?" I said, "I would. I'm like you. I'd break the bank to be in that stadium."
Dude, don't worry about where you got to stay. You can stay at my house. All you got to do is get a ticket to the game. That's all.
Yeah.
That's what I tell all my Uruguayan friends. Don't worry. We'll start Dean my house. I only have 3 bedrooms, but we'll figure it out. I want, especially if it's against Argentina. There's a lot of Argentinians that live in Miami. So I would suspect that the stadium is going to be 70% Argentinians. But how lovely would it be, if it's almost 80,000, like 78,000? How beautiful would it be if it was 50-50, Uruguay, Argentina? I mean,
man. Yeah. I mean, if I were a tournament organizer too, an Argentina-Uruguay final, you could market it Messi versus Suarez, the 2 teammates from Miami for like the neutral, right? So not too bad for them either, right? But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the only question that I have too is, like you said, Brazil are a huge question mark, and they're going through a lot of transition right now. The last time they were going through a transition like this was in 2011, which also something else happened in 2011. I can't remember. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, Brazil's a question mark. Colombia is somewhat is a team. I know we'll get into this later, but I will say this right now: Colombia is a team that everybody's sleeping on. Just watch. If Uruguay, let's say we were supposed to get by Colombia and Brazil, I'd be more scared of Colombia than I would be playing Brazil at this very moment in time.
Yeah, no, me too. And let's get into this comment of the penalties. Then, like you just alluded to a little bit, let's do the predictions and then round off the video. First of all, by the way, thanks for everyone being here and getting involved in the chat. I mean, really appreciate it. Please like if you want to subscribe for more. We are obviously gonna go live more often, certainly when the tournament approaches. And like I said earlier in the video, you can join the group chat on Bunches. It's a sports fans app. Will be nice to get that going, and then we can just talk about the most beautiful team in the world over there. Okay, the penalties. I think it's a good question, by the way, because in recent tournaments, certainly the most recent one, it was Mina sticks in my mind right now. By the way, he had Mina with his dancing, but it's a big problem recently. Do any of you guys coming into this tournament, does this cross your mind or not really?
I don't think it per se crosses the mind for like first thing, but like when you look back at those last 2 Copas, especially, man, Peru and the like you think about it, just it's 50-50, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're playing Panama. You like obviously you can't in this case, but you know what I mean, right? Like it doesn't matter. You could be playing the 99th ranked team in the world. It can go either way. So regardless of the takers you have, like we had Eddie, we had Lucho, like, and still even Suarez, as much as we love him so much and we think he's our hero, even he can miss. So it's 50-50, right?
No, I agree. And I think this comment really is a good one to add on to it, because especially against Colombia, I mean, against Peru, I think we didn't have any luck that game. But against Colombia, that game, we really played not to lose. And then you risk the chance of getting into a penalty shootout. But what gives me more confidence in this run is that Bielsa does not play not to lose. He plays to win always. So therefore, you perhaps be knocked out in 90 minutes, which also isn't great. But yeah, I hopefully we will not get into many penalty scenarios, because it's just, yeah, I mean, it's nice to look at it at the neutral, but when you're involved with a team, it's horrific, you know.
To my understanding, this Copa America is going to follow the previous ones, in which if you're tied after 90, you go straight to penalties.
Okay,
am I correct?
Yeah, you could be right.
That was a huge factor as to why we lost against Peru and Colombia. You know, the Peru game in 2019, obviously we deserve to go through. I mean, we're talking about margins that are like a hair wide with the VAR. Against Colombia, more infuriating because we didn't play to win that game. I remember it was the first time I watched a knockout game with the national team, and I was trying to stay awake. But would be I would love to get some sort of, you know, statistical record of how this team historically all time has done in penalty shootouts.
I'm ready for you, bro. I'm ready for you. Let me
Really?
know. Let me know when you want me to start.
Please, yeah, no. I would love. I love reading into the stats. I love reading the threads on Twitter and everything. But I would probably, you know, my gut tends to lead me to believe that, you know, just based on the culture and the history behind this national team, that we would be much better at penalty shootouts when our back is up against the wall and we're the team that's kind of the underdog and not more so the favorite like we were against Peru and Colombia.
Yeah.
Well, your gut is no good, because Uruguay in knockout situations is in 13 total knockout situation penalty games faced. They've won 5, lost 8. Of those 13, 10 of those have come in Copa America games, and they've lost 4 out of the 10. They've lost 6 out of 10 and have won 4 out of the 10. So 40% in Copa America. They've lost the last 2 penalty shootouts in Copa America. But I'll tell you something. Although the stats might be negative, Uruguay has something this, you know, Copa America that they haven't had for a long time, and that's a goalkeeper who is a shot stopper. And I'm very, very, very confident in Chino Rochette. He showed it multiple times with Nacional on their way to you know, a kind of a miraculous kind of run of a couple of years ago in Copa Libertadores, where they beat Independiente del Valle 0-0, you know, back-to-back games, and then won in penalties. So look, Chino Rochette has shown that he can block penalties. So that's why I'm so much more confident. Now, obviously, you know, you can block him, but you got to make him too. And Gabe you know, he was hit it spot on. Even Suarez can miss. Even, you know, Palermo missed three penalties in one game. So in penalties, it's 50-50. And you know, it's more I feel more confident because we have a better shot stopper. But you got to make those goals.
He's already on the list of goalkeepers who've stopped a penalty in a World Cup game for Uruguay. Yeah. He stopped one in the last World Cup, so we've already seen it.
No, it's a good point. Yeah. Jorge, so with a comment, great stream, guys. And Jorge, thank you for being here, by the way. Always good to see you in the chat. And let's hope Uruguay can lift the 16th Copa this summer in Miami. It's what we are hoping. And to have an idea of what we believe will happen, let's start with the prediction. So we will go to the groups quickly a little bit, but because I think we all have a little bit of an idea of who will go through. Perhaps we will differ in certain groups, but I'm just gonna get the Copa page here. Okay, so first group, I think, well, we are all quite clear who's gonna top that. So Argentina, Canada, Chile, and Peru. So Argentina's gonna top it, I guess. Yeah, I mean, that's maybe Alessandro and Gabe. Maybe you have some nationalistic ideas right now that Canada is going to do it. But although they got a result, you know, a draw in France, so who knows? By the way, to both of you, how are you feeling about Canada this tournament?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I don't watch the team. If like in the tournament, in the Copa, when it starts, fine. But I don't go watching the friendlies like I would for an Uruguay game. And I heard though that they played pretty much against France's pretty much their top squad, other than Mbappe. I think he came in, but I heard they played good. They played with a direct type of play, and they had an actual, what's the word I'm looking for? They had an actual system rather than just hope.
Yeah, they came in 4-4-2. Alphonso Davies is not playing winger or striker anymore for Canada. He's back in the left back position. I have a couple friends on the team, so I feel obligated to watch all their matches. Left mid, I'll give a shout out to one of them, Liam Miller, who came in. He's playing in Preston North End, the championship in England, and he came and played a terrific game, I think, against Netherlands and France. Started both games. They have a new coach, Jesse March. He's the Red Bull school kind of guy. He's not even their coach. I think the title is MLS partner coach, because the MLS is funded. You know what I'm talking about. I don't even know how it works. I've never heard of any sort of payment model like this ever. But
the three MLS clubs in Canada, so Toronto FC, Montreal, and Vancouver, their three owners got together and put money down to basically pay Jesse Marsh. And so because they paid and not the Canadian Soccer Association, they're choosing to name him as Canada's MLS coach, essentially, which I think is hilarious. But look, Jesse Marsh, I think, is a good coach. And for the players that Canada has, I think he's, they could be a surprise. They could make it in second place in this group. Peru's coming in kind of weak. I just heard Renato Tapia is not going to be playing the tournament. I think he got hurt, so that's a big loss for them. And again, Chile has not looked that strong in World Cup qualifying. So if Jesse can get the team rolling, they can get a couple ties and a win. 5 points could get you through.
So I agree. So you two, Canada second? Just trying to get something.
I'll go Canada second.
Yeah. Okay. I can see it as well, because Chile, Peru, last few editions, certainly between 2015, 2019, they were great, really good. But now, Jorge Fossati, obviously, only Uruguay manager in the tournament, managing Peru. But yeah, let's go Canada second. Perhaps
I'd love to see Canada take Chile out of the mix, 100%.
Yeah. No, we're just gonna do it. Nobody's gonna record this, so it's fine. Okay, this Canada second.
Go on YouTube for my friends to clip and save it later. No worries.
Yeah, and Peru. Well, Peru's third and Chile obviously fourth. Because who wants to see Chile do anything well? So let's hope they will go on with.
I do. I work for a Chilean bank, so as long as my bank keeps making money. I don't care about the national team, but as long as the bank keeps making money, I'm all for it.
And Chile, by the way, just to quickly go over that, Chile are, I think, 8th in the qualifiers, and Peru are 10th. So it's not completely unimaginable to see them go out as third and fourth place. So let's see. Okay, second group. I think this is quite an exciting group as a neutral, though. So Ecuador, Jamaica, Mexico, and Venezuela. I think. Alessandro, what's your top two here? What is your top two?
This is a very tricky group, because if you look at it without looking at the context from the outside and not taking the qualifiers in mind, you instantly say, okay, Ecuador and Mexico. But then you look a little bit deeper and you think, okay, Ecuador, they have a new coach, they have a new system, but they're not at all, it's not been, all sunshine and roses for them in terms of their play. It's been a little bit too pragmatic, a little bit too negative for the Ecuadorian media, especially for some of the fans of Ecuador. Venezuela have been obviously the shock of the qualifiers, and they drew Brazil away. They look, Venezuela is always that question mark, especially in the last 10 to 15 years. They've actually had a couple of good runs. And then you have Jamaica, who I think would be the weakest team in the group on paper, and I think would probably finish last, but could still cause an upset, especially to a team who's low in confidence and low in morale like Mexico. I'm going to say to get out of that group, I'm going to say Ecuador will come out first, Venezuela will come out second, Mexico will finish third, and Jamaica will finish last.
Agree with that? Yeah.
Agree?
Yeah, for sure.
I think, and that's also a good bet, by the way. It's a good bet, because if you're putting money on football, Venezuela to go through ahead of Mexico is a good one, because like you said, the form of both teams right now. So let's see. And Venezuela, I remember Dudamel when he was in charge, I think 2016, 2017, they were all talking about this project of Venezuela. They went to the final of the Under-20 World Cup with Peñaranda, for example, being there. But actually, when you look at it, it's just now in recent months, recent year, the last year actually, where they actually have shown promise and shown resilience and a more talented side. So it's exciting, and it will be good as well to see some new competitors. I'm not sure they're gonna go any further than the quarterfinal, by the way, but we will. Let's see. So Ecuador, Venezuela, Mexico, and Jamaica. Then we got the Group C, the group with Uruguay. So Uruguay, the US, Bolivia, and Panama. And I think it's important to mention Bolivia haven't won a game in the Copa since 2015, and that's the only game they won since I think it's 1997. So yeah, I mean, and
who the hell did they beat in 2015?
I think I didn't look it up, by the way, but I'm not sure. They even went to. Did they? I think they went to the quarterfinals in that one. But even though, I mean, they just don't win in the Copa. That's basically it. Because I mean, La Paz is not an opportunity, you know. Or only I think they hosted 2 Copas and they won one and they finished second in the other. I think. But
I lost to Brazil.
Yeah, and Panama, the second appearance in the Copa. So I think we can all agree on Uruguay and the US going through. And I also think we can all agree that Uruguay are going to top the group. I mean, maybe that's probably the hope as well, but I think we should, you know. I think it's a failure, right, if we don't finish first, or I'm saying something crazy right now.
Absolutely.
100%.
I could see a situation where everyone starts perking up for a second. I can see a situation in which we still finish first, but we don't win we don't win out. So we'll win the first 2, we get to the third, and it's comfortable, and then we kind of play out to this, you know, boring draw with the United States, and then that's what I think could happen, just because there's a lack of interest or intrigue in that game. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's possible. I think it's possible, but I just think the way Bielsa is going to play, man, I don't think he's going to set that squad up to even give like a single crap about it. And I know you don't think that, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean, right?
But if there's nothing there to play, if your position's not going to change regardless, it's just for me anyway. It's just like you'd waste so much energy in a game before a quarterfinal.
Yeah, but even the guys on the bench, I wouldn't be worried starting, you know, the guys on the bench against a starting 11 of USA. And if there's nothing to for in terms of positioning, if they're going to still qualify in first, I still have more faith in Uruguay's backups than a USA starting team. And I think it showed, you know, that in the game against Colombia, although I don't think the US showed their best form there.
Okay. No, and the point you make, by the way, is there's a scenario obviously with the last game, not that important. It could happen, but other than that, I think Uruguay hopefully will top, and then USA are second. And Jorge here talks about the Argentina-Ecuador game. I think they've played each other, I think, 3 times in the last 12 months, and 2 1-0s. You know, especially the qualifier one. Ecuador competed in that game, but Argentina just seemed to be a little bit too strong. But I do actually hope, as someone who is not is obviously a Uruguay supporter, that Ecuador will have a good tournament, can make it into the semis. And the way this tournament opens up, and we will talk about it a little bit later, it's really a good opportunity for Ecuador to get into the semis, which is, I'm not even sure they have done it in their history. And if they have, it's been really far and few in between. Okay, so let's move on to.
They did, just to chime in super quick, they did finish, their best performance was in 1993 when it was hosted in Ecuador. Argentina won that Copa América. They finished 4th.
Okay, yeah. No, so it will be great for them, and certainly with this new generation, will be good to see Ecuador coming up as a new competitor, a bit different to Chile or Peru. Okay, so last group, I think similar to the one we just discussed. It's pretty expected to we expecting 2 teams to finish top. Obviously, that's every group, but it's not going to be a huge debate, I guess, here, because it's Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, and Paraguay. Assuming Brazil and Colombia finish as top 2 spots, do you see any of you see Costa Rica or Paraguay making a challenge? No, I guess I agree as well. It's Paraguay. Last 10-15 years they have been able to do it, by the way. I mean, to make deep runs into the tournament, knock out Brazil, for example. But this Paraguay is just so poor, and they don't score goals. You know, I think they scored only 1 goal in the qualifiers so far. And then Brazil and Colombia, who's gonna finish top? Daniel, who do you believe is gonna finish top?
Here's my surprise. I think it's gonna be Colombia.
Yeah, any of you guys?
That was also going to be sort of my shock pick as well. I think Paraguay has Costa Rica for sure will finish bottom of that group. can guarantee you that with a lot of money, hopefully. But what I will say is that Paraguay, I don't know, they put everybody behind the ball in a game against Brazil or Colombia. Maybe they etch out a draw there, but I don't see much. Like you said, it's very weak in comparison to years before, even when they had that fall off after 2012, 2013. But I would say Colombia, I think, actually finished first in that group. I think they're going to be sort of and that's actually better for Uruguay, right? The longer this Colombia unbeaten run goes, the more hype, the more media attention this Colombia team gets, the better it is for us to be coming into that match with Colombia.
It might be true, but it does set up, and I'm just trying to write it down here, it does set up a hell of a quarterfinal, right? I mean, Uruguay-Brazil. So let's start from the top. Argentina, Venezuela. Well, yeah. Or no, I got it wrong, right? No, Argentina. Yeah, Argentina, Venezuela. I'm sorry. It's gonna be the first one. Well, I think Argentina, right? That's that. And then we got Ecuador, Canada. Daniel, probably we will take this one. Otherwise, perhaps.
I would go with Ecuador, but it would be an interesting game because Ecuador has some really young, interesting players, and again, Jesse Marsch is a really strategic coach. So I would say Ecuador, but I know the other two guys might kill me.
I agree. I agree 100%. Go ahead, Gabe.
I agree. I don't. Not that I think. Not that. Listen. Obviously I want Canada to win. I would want Canada to win, of course. But I think Ecuador will have more quality. I think just all around. But listen. I hope Canada surprises me. I hope so.
Would be the upset of the tournament, right? I mean, if Canada can make it through beat Peru and Chile, I mean, obviously, better national teams in terms of history, and maybe not now, and then beat Ecuador. So it would be great, but I think,
I think Ecuador wins that one. I think there's a threshold for Canada, and even it was a stretch, me saying them to come out of that group. I think they could beat Peru, but I think there was a comment earlier that someone made about Chile with Gareca and the way that the Chilenos are, and the South American way of playing, of tough and like kind of, inventing fouls, that kind of streetwise. Canada doesn't have that. Canada in a game like that, I think it'll go the other way as opposed to the way they want it to go. So I definitely think Ecuador have more than enough on paper to get by.
Yeah. No, we were probably being also a bit optimistic to get them through. So this probably is where it's going to end.
Yeah.
Similar to Venezuela against Argentina. So Ecuador or Argentina, Ecuador as the semifinal, the first one. Then we got Uruguay, Brazil, and Colombia, USA. I think the last one, I mean, if 5-1 a couple of days ago, I think we all will go with Colombia there. I'm not even going to ask, I think, because that's going to... If I hear people talk, U.S. national team fans about Berhalter, I don't see the U.S. actually doing something in this tournament because the confidence is so low. Okay, Colombia going through then. Uruguay, Brazil. We have to really remove our bias from the picture, and if we do that, Gabe, what's your impression of that game? What do you think is going to happen?
Listen,
I'm sorry, man. It's a tough one.
Tough one, but listen, I can't lie. That Brazil front line, that Vinny, that Rodrigo, and is Endrick supposed to start? No, I think will they start Endrick? I assume so, right?
Probably, yeah.
So I can't lie. It's something that I think any team in this tournament will be worried about. And then I look a little bit further into the team, the midfield, especially the two fullbacks. Who are they bringing? I think they're bringing Danilo, and they have Wendell, or I'm not. I can't be certain. I haven't looked too into them, but I think obviously we saw what we could do in the qualifier. We saw, like we all said earlier, like Bielsa's not playing to shy away, to be afraid, to any of the above, right? He's gonna go in there expecting a win against the Brazil team. So taking the bias out is hard, but I think we have we know we have the quality. We did it in what, September, October. So I think we can do it again. The question for me is, in a big knockout game, we haven't seen the last time the last time we saw us play a big knockout game and show up was the Portugal game, no? From 2018. So can we show up in that knockout game? That's the question for me.
Yeah, excellent point, by the way. I didn't even think of that because, yeah, Brazil, although they came short against Croatia, they have lived in these knockout games in recent times, more than we obviously have done in recent times. So that's a good point. And another point I would like to add is that I rewatched parts of the Brazil game in the end of 2023, and yeah, we did win the game, and we deserved to win the game. But in both games, in Brazil and Argentina game, at 1-0, we do. For example, Messi hits a crossbar. Rodrigo hits a crossbar with a free kick. There were opportunities there that obviously are still there with quality sides like Brazil and Argentina. So it's going to be one hell of a game. I think it's probably a contender for game of the tournament, not only in terms of name, but also in terms of what we are going to see. And then for me, I'm still going to go Uruguay. Obviously, I'm not going to sit there and say Brazil. But Daniel, Alessandro, maybe you have the guts to do it, to put Brazil through.
No. I mean, I personally, you don't even have to ask me. I have Uruguay winning the whole thing, and I think you nailed it on the head in terms of, yes, in those games, Uruguay, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, they're clásicos. Anything can happen. When you said you rewatched it and Rodrigo hit the crossbar, Messi hit the crossbar. Yeah, I mean, in order to win these tournaments, not only do you need to be a good team, but you have to have luck on your side. So,
yeah.
You don't win the Copa América, the World Cup, any tournament without a little bit of luck on your side. So I think it's finally time for Uruguay to have a little bit of luck on that side. And I don't think they're going to look back. I think they go through Brazil, they go through Colombia, and it'll be Uruguay, Argentina. And not to get ahead of myself, and I think they beat Argentina in the final. I think that's how Uruguay ends up winning the 16th is right here in Miami, Florida. Me crying, seeing Suarez lift up that trophy after they give him the armband.
Yeah. Wow, we make it sound so easy. You could dress up. I don't know what the saying is. You could dress it up as much as you like and make it so pretty, but it's never gonna take away what it is at its core, which is that we are going to suffer on the way to the final. And I guarantee you right now, we're not going to beat Brazil. We're not. We'll tie them and we'll beat them in penalties. That's I'll tell you, right? It'll be a 1-1, and that game will play out the way it did in 2011, the same way it was Uruguay, Argentina, and I forgot where they played. They've obviously played in Argentina. But I think it'll be a game that's made for a shootout, and that's where we'll take it.
Don't bring me back to that suffering, man. That suffering. Don't bring me back to that suffering. My God.
Funny enough, if I remember correctly, I think they played in Newell Stadium, which is Messi's team. So, and he played in that game. I remember Cáceres making the game-winning penalty. So. Yeah, I wouldn't be against that, but I don't think they're gonna make it to penalties. I think they could beat Brazil, in 90 minutes without a problem.
I think
without the problem, he says.
I think we take them in penalties, and then I think it's the Colombia game in the semis in which we were able to squeak out 2-1 or 2-0 or 1-0.
Okay.
Okay. It might be suffering, but it won't be the suffering. Maybe it'll be different type of suffering, right? Before we're used to suffering when we're on the back foot and we're like back against the wall. This maybe because we're tactically set up in a different way. The suffering maybe that we're so wide open, we're gonna have to watch teams miss chance after chance against us or squander like the transition back and forth. That might be the different type of suffering that it may be refreshing to see, because let me tell you, when our heads were basically at the net and we're struggling for air, that's what it felt like in some of these games, even against Portugal, right? In the knockout game, when we were up 1-0, when we were up 1-0 against Korea in 2010, we were up when it was 1-1 in Argentina in 2011. It just, those moments, man, when you're sitting there as a fan and you're just like, you're sweating just sitting there, you're not even like moving. Those are the moments I live for. But I guarantee you there will be suffering.
Yeah. No, Guy Pisanelli here says, I agree. We will suffer along the way, but pens or not. Yeah. I think I agree absolutely, and certainly with these games, it's impossible to not to suffer, I guess. But even though if it was Costa Rica, Paraguay, Uruguay probably would have suffered as well. Okay, and then Jorge says this may be a hot take, but Uruguay has a better midfield than Brazil. I think Uruguay have a really rightful claim to have the best midfield in South America right now. Right, Gabe? I mean, I'm sure.
for me right now with the Brazil compared to the Brazil team, I think we are the first. I think we are the best team in South America. When you look at it, I mean, you look at it and you see, okay, Argentina they have McAllister, they have DePaul, they have Paredes, they have the players to the point where you can slot them in with each other and they're interchangeable. But I mean, if you're going man for man, I wouldn't take and maybe it's the bias, but for me, if you're going man for man, I wouldn't take a single player out of our midfield and grab from theirs because I just think the balance we have, especially when you play those three that we saw, and even if you play Nico, but when you play those three, that Benta, Fede, and Ugarte, the balance is just because Fede has a role unlike Madrid where he has a very free role. He can go up and down the pitch as he pleases, and he does the same in Madrid. But I think he has more of an advanced role with Uruguay if he has the ability to go forward more. I think.
Yeah, I agree with the midfield discussion because when you look at in the games, especially in the qualifiers, the midfield of Uruguay were so key in winning these games. You know, Ugarte especially in the Argentina game. So yeah, I think we are good at that department. Moving on to the semifinals, so Argentina Ecuador. I think Argentina will probably edge it, you know, based on the recent games between them, but also based on the fact that Argentina is a better side and more experience in these type of games. As much as we talk about Ecuador now, they went out in the group stages less than 2 years ago, you know, in the World Cup. So we also have to obviously take that into account. Anyone see upset on the cards here?
I don't know, unless Messi has an off day and Argentina are just getting their own heads and Ecuador's parking the bus with a back five. And like I said, it goes straight to penalties after 90, maybe like a 10% chance out of 100. But Argentina, I mean, the way the draw is designed and the way the bracket has played out really should be sleepwalking their way into the final.
Yeah.
And that could play into the hands of any team that meets them in the final, like a Brazil, Colombia, Uruguay, right? You see, you're going to have a team that's kind of cakewalked their way versus a team that has struggled and worked every single ounce of the way to get there. And that usually plays into the hands of the team that struggled more.
No, yeah, good point. That's probably, and luckily there's no extra time then in terms of tiredness for teams coming up against Argentina, who probably will have some more opportunities to rest than Uruguay or Colombia or Brazil for that matter. Moving on to the other semifinal or possible semifinal then, Colombia and Uruguay. I think I saw someone comment in the chat that the run that Colombia are on, I think it's 21 or 22 now, times unbeaten in a row. Big performances against big European opposition and also against Brazil. And he said, perhaps, is this good? Or maybe it's more, it gets complacency, gets stuck, gets into the team. But if we look at this semi-final, what do you see happening here? What kind of game? Similar to Brazil or is it completely different? Daniel, what's your view on this game?
I mean, I think it's gonna, like every semifinal, it's gonna be a battle. You know, of two teams that are gonna hopefully, you know, hope the other team to make a mistake. Like I said, Bielsa kind of plays that way. He pressures you to make it, and then he pushes you. That's his, you know, strategy, and that's how I think he's gonna play. I don't think he's gonna sit back, but again, I think he'll try to force them to make a mistake. And you know, if he can do that in the first 5-10 minutes and get a goal, then it'll, you know, probably set Uruguay a little bit more in the back, and maybe not as traditional as how they sat in the back, but they'll at least be more comfortable with a 1-0 lead. So we'll see. It's going to be, again, like everybody said, we're going to suffer. I'm not saying we're going to win every game 5-0, but I feel a lot more confident, and I feel a lot more calm going into this tournament than I have going into any other tournament in the last 10 years.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I would just say very quickly on a Colombia-Uruguay matchup in the semifinals, what we all want to hear is that we go through, and I'll say it for the purposes of the stream that we go through, but what we probably don't want to hear is that game is a coin toss. And there's a very real probability that's where we bite the dust is in that semifinal game. But I will say that I can probably confidently say that a game against Colombia is probably going to be a lot more of an open game than it is against Brazil. Against Brazil, there's always historically, and it's just the way that Uruguayan footballs have been, mentally socialized through watching previous iterations of this team, is that there'll be more apprehension. There'll be more of a kind of, let's start a bit more on the back foot, even if the intention is to go on the front foot against Brazil. But against Colombia, that won't be much of the case. You'll see I could see like a 2-2 or a 3-2 maybe against Colombia, a high-scoring game. Think about the second half in away to Colombia in qualifying, how open that was. Colombia could have scored 3 or 4 goals in the span of 10 minutes. Yeah. We also had chances to win the game. We could have scored 3 or 4 goals in the span of 10, 20 minutes in the first half. So expect a game like that in the semifinal, and that's why I say it could very well be a coin toss. James, that's a good point. He scores a lot of goals against Uruguay, but unless he's on some ridiculous fitness regime, then fitness for him will be a major issue in this long tournament.
Scored one hell of a goal against the US a couple of days ago, by the way. But no, I agree completely what you're saying. The Colombia game is less high profile, obviously, than the Brazil or possible Argentina game. Absolutely, but it's probably gonna be even as tough and perhaps even tougher. And yeah, if you look at the last 10 years, 2 knockouts in the Copa and World Cup were against Colombia. The 2014 obviously and 2021. So there's we have to make amends there. We have to hopefully get one over them this time around. And for the purpose of the stream, we're obviously going to get Uruguay through to the final. And that will set up an Argentina-Uruguay final. And bit like the Colombia game, by the way, and bit like the Brazil game, we can obviously try to predict, but it's hard to say right now. So we can all say right now that Uruguay will win. And I do believe in that case, when it comes down to that, we can win, but it's hard, obviously, to predict it at this moment. Maybe a question then, besides that final, because like I said, we cannot really say anything about it. When we look at the tournament, who is going to be the top scorer? Gabe, let's start with you. Who will be the top scorer?
Listen, I know you want to put bias aside, but at the end of the day, I look at those 2 games, Bolivia and Panama, and I think, like you said at the start, Darwin can put in at least I think 2 or 3, at minimum 2. I think he can put in at least 2 goals against both those teams. He should, but he has the possibility to do more. We saw him put 3 against Mexico. If he can put 3, and I know that Mexican side was fairly weak and they weren't set up to fight for a win in that friendly, to be honest. But I think if he can put those 3 goals in against that team, he can do it against Bolivia or Panama. So obviously I'm gonna go Darwin. So
no, it's good. Yeah, I think. And to get back, by the way, at the last discussion on the final, Jorge says Uruguay doesn't lose finals, and then Pisanelli says, especially not to Argentina. So let's close that chapter on with this comment, which is a good one and a hopeful one, obviously. So Alessandro, Daniel, and any other player, whether it's Uruguay or from another team, who you believe could be top scorer? I think the Darwin argument is really strong, by the way. Because the first 2 games he can score goals. But any other player who you have in mind?
I think the obvious, and depending on how many penalties they get called, is Lionel Messi, right? To be the leading goal scorer, because he'll get all the penalties for Argentina. And again, they don't play a super tough schedule either. Maybe a little bit tougher than Uruguay, with Chile and Peru. I think those games, while they're weak, they'll still be tough sides. Any South American matchup is a tough side. So I think Gabe is right. Darwin could score 6-7 goals in the first couple games. He can. He's plus 550 to be the leading goal scorer, and I put down money. I put down $100 to see if he wins. So let's see if he wins. But if he does, I think it'll be because of those first couple games, not because of what he does in the later rounds. I think he'll probably stat pad the first couple games.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think I'll throw names that maybe haven't been mentioned yet. Of course, Messi, Darwin, for the reasons we just named, but other names that we haven't mentioned yet. Vinicius Jr., depending on how open that group is. In Brazil, in Brazil's game, Vinicius could definitely come up with, if I could see him scoring maybe a hat trick against Costa Rica, that brings them to 3 already, and then he gets 1 against either Colombia or Paraguay. He's already on 4. Julian Alvarez on Argentina is another good shout, especially with very accessible games for Argentina in the group stage. In Ecuador's group, I'll throw Ener Valencia. He had a very good World Cup as well. He's Ecuador's main striker. He could come up with a few goals in the first round as well, and that could put him in the top goal scorer conversation. You go ahead.
Valverde has better odds than Ener Valencia.
Really?
So I'm looking at the odds. Messi is plus 300, Vinicius plus 400, Darwin plus 550, Julian Alvarez plus 700, Lautaro plus 800, Rodrigo plus 800, Martinelli, then Rafael Diaz Beloli, then Luis Diaz, then Facundo Pellistri, and then Christian Pulisic. So, I mean, those are the names just write down based on what the betting, what the odds makers are saying, who have the chances. So, kind of nice to see Argentinians. So
I would agree with that. I would agree with that 100% if Valverde was playing as high up as he plays for Real Madrid. That's why I don't put him in that conversation, because I know for a fact, given from what we've seen before, that he'll play deeper for Uruguay. But I will say, Ener Valencia probably had very low odds before the last World Cup as well. You never know, right? It's a tournament. Things happen. Bounces, penalties, free kicks. But we'll see, right? That's the beauty in all this. But I will say there was an article, NBC Sports had put out their predictions for the tournament. And for player of the tournament, their third prediction, and I think none of you will have guessed this, is Jimenez. So I found that to be very interesting.
But he's not Santiago Jimenez, I guess,
no,
right?
No. Our Jimenez.
So seriously?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I should have said,
get hurt.
Jimenez. Both shouts are not, are right, quite left field, because Santiago Jimenez, I think he's not even like a fixed starter there. But yeah, Josema, who knows? I mean, maybe they've taken into account that he is probably going to be the captain. But yeah, I would be really pleased if Josema can stay fit for the possible 6 games, Then I will be really glad. That's my only concern.
Just to add to the top scorer thing, and you were talking about Julian and Lautaro. I think I saw the stat the other day. It was like both of them combined, I think they've scored 1 goal for Argentina, and it's been over 15, 20 games, I think. Something pretty crazy, which I mean, that's the only reason I'm saying, Darwin probably, I don't know. I would have thought they'd scored more than 1 goal in 15, 20 plus games. So that's, I just wanted to put that out there because I heard that stat and I was like, wow. Is that real? So,
no, there are some big stars. I mean, as for Brazil as well, Vinicius, for example, like we mentioned earlier, is also, I think he's only scored 2 or 3 goals for Brazil.
3 goals. 3 goals.
3 goals, yeah.
Darwin scored 3 on last week.
So but the funny thing about this is we can talk about it, and then the first game comes and he scores a hat trick, and that he's the type of player that can do that, obviously. So we'll see. And Cupisanelli adds to the conversation. Outside of Darwin and Messi, the only other considerations I would put are Luis Diaz and Endrick, which are good shouts, by the way. I think Endrick, maybe, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure if he's going to start all games. But Luis Diaz, I mean, he's the star man for Colombia, obviously. So, but he, like Alessandro probably will know, he's a great player. I mean, one-on-one, technical level is crazy. But when it comes to finishing off chances, that's a problem for Luis Diaz sometimes.
I just had a flashback to
the Man City game, huh?
The breakaway, Yeah.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Okay. I hate to say it, but we can say the same thing about our boy.
For sure, absolutely.
Not for our shirt, not for our shirt, for your shirt, Alessandro, not ours. But man, obviously for us, he's been able to convert. So hopefully next season.
I like, obviously I've said it before in this year. My love for Liverpool is large, but it's only a grain of sand in comparison to my love for Leicester. So.
No, that's nicely said, by the way. This was poetic, man. But let's hope Darwin comes up top scorer. I think, almost going until the 12 mark. I think it's good to call it a day here. For you guys, you probably have something planned. For me, the only thing I've planned yet is to go to sleep. So let's call it a day here. Appreciate all of you, all of 3 of you being here, by the way, as well as for the people who watched on the stream. and who got involved in the chat, who were just listening to us rambling on. We don't have a schedule or something, but we will obviously go live towards the tournament, and also during the games or after and before the games. We will look what is convenient. So please subscribe to the channel if you are keen on watching that, and you can like the video if you want, if you think we deserve the like. Okay, so once again, thanks guys for being here. I will speak to you very soon, I guess, and we will be in contact on X. Anything you want to say before we end the video? Maybe a hopeful message for the tournament, or
Listen, honestly,
go for it.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I was just gonna say I'm gonna be putting out a lot of content now with the Copa América coming up. So every morning that there are games, I will be putting out content like a 30 to 90-second video on the day's games, on the previous day's games, just to kind of get the Copa América talk going. So if you want to check out those videos, you can see me at all the social medias, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Danny Solana 5, DANISOLANA 5. So I'll be starting with those next week, and I hope you guys enjoy them.
Yeah, and the Twitter handles or the X handles are all in the description to all of these guys, so you can follow them there. And I would advise you to do so certainly when the Copa gets going. Yeah, okay, guys, thanks for being here, and speak to you very soon. For everyone watching here, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are, and yeah, see you very soon. Bye bye.
See everybody.